Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Preview. I am Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Joining you, as always, the two guys that make up the terrible trio. Deputy Dave, what's up? I'm glad that you adjusted that on your screen, his little nameplate there. For those that aren't watching on YouTube, he finally changed it to not Dave Schofield, but Deputy Dave. What's up, Deputy Dave?
Jeff, I am fantastic tonight.
Yes.
I am so excited to be here talking Steelers. I can't believe that we are exactly 4 weeks away from when we are supposed to have the NFL draft, where we can sit back and watch the first round unfold and not have to worry about what's going on and just see how things are shaping up for the next day.
I'm kind of bummed because that was when we were supposed to do our draft party. We had talked about potentially having it at a Permane Brothers here in Maryland, and it doesn't look like there's any end in sight for restaurants like that to be open for us to have that gathering. So that's kind of a bummer, but it's coming up quickly. Brian Anthony Davis, or Mr. Bad, as we call him. What's up, Brian?
Not too much, guys. As far as the draft goes, Roger Goodell 53 minutes ago said that it is going to go on as planned that weekend, the 23rd through 25th. So I'm really excited about that. So we'll just hang out in Dave's backyard and we'll have a big party there. How about that?
Everyone will be 6 feet away from each other. There'll be no high-fiving, no bro hugs, just awkward waving from a distance. That's
well, we could celebrate the Minka pick now. Woohoo! Virtual high five.
Yeah, there you go.
Also, every time I see the name Deputy Dave, I think of a high five that stops and says, "Sorry, folks, park's closed." So when I think of Deputy Dave, I think of Dave Schofield coming out a la John Candy.
Yes.
National Lampoon's Vacation.
Yes.
Sorry, folks, park's closed.
I always just imagine him wearing nothing like head to toe khaki. Just a khaki bastard, just all khakis in a park somewhere. Anyways, Deputy Dave is here in attendance. He's in a better mood than last week. He was really angry last week when he came on. So we're in a better space mentally. Let's get things started. Yesterday, I was on a show, had a special guest, good friend of mine, good friend of the shows of The Standard is a Standard. It was none other than Chris Carter, who used to work for BehindTheSteelCurtain.com before going to DK Pittsburgh Sports. And during that program, a lot of people in the live chat and news had kind of broken prior to the show. Dave wrote the article for the website that the Steelers had started to sign some XFL players. Now, I didn't realize this at the time, but prior to the combine, the scouting combine that happened in Indianapolis, Steelers general manager Kevin Colbert said that this was expected. They weren't expecting the XFL to be done as early as they were due to the coronavirus, but it was expected that a lot of these players that were playing for the XFL would eventually find their way onto NFL rosters. As he said, quote unquote, they were using a lot of the guys that we would give futures contracts to. So the Steelers started that process. A lot of other NFL teams started that process, and a lot of fans in the live chat wanted to know, who do they get and what do they bring to the team? And so, Dave, you covered the first two, and then I covered the third pick up today. Dave, who are the players that they first got, and give us a little bit of information about him.
All right. The first player that they signed was, the first two were actually both from the New York Guardians, but the very first one that they signed was Kayvon Walker. He is a defensive lineman that led the league with sacks. The XFL league, of course, in sacks. Now, it was 4.5 sacks in 5 games. So it's not like he was going out there putting up crazy numbers, but at the same time, he's also a defensive lineman. So that's part of the thing there. Now the thing that's interesting with that is that he actually started his career. He played for the University of Maryland. He actually started his collegiate career as a linebacker and then moved to defensive tackle or defensive end, however you really want to classify that. Okay. And a bit undersized. So if people think, oh, that's someone that could go down and maybe play a really big nose tackle. No, he's basically all the guys that played on the defensive line for the Steelers last year. He's smaller than all of them. He's 6'2", 284 is what he's listed in the XFL. So he's kind of like one of those in between guys needs to be a little bit bigger to play play defensive line, but is a little bit too big to play linebacker. But who knows? I mean, this is a guy that you could come in and work with, and doesn't even necessarily have to make the team. He, could be a practice squad guy or something like that. I'd be really surprised if we're getting any significant playing time from anyone from the XFL. But that was the first one. So that was Kayvon Walker.
Okay. Where did he go to? He's in Maryland. He was a Maryland product.
Yes, he was the Maryland guy.
So he's a Terrapin. Brian, do you know any obscure information about this guy?
Kayvon Walker has been playing football since, I think, grade school. So that's the information I have about Kayvon Walker.
Old Kayvon Walker.
I want to know if he actually found that out or if he's just making it up.
I'm making up. But if he makes the team, we have a great song. And a t-shirt idea. He must be Kayvon. And instead of Sir Elton John's Leave On, play some football. So Kayvon, play some football.
This is why you tune into the turf, they say. This is why you tune into the preview, folks. This hard-hitting football action. There you go. Some great breakdown there by Brian Anthony Davis. I do want to take a minute here. Dennis Sheridan puts $2 in the tip jar. He says, rest in peace, Woody. I think it's
Widenhofer.
Widenhofer, best EC we ever had. That was a third assistant from the Super Steelers teams that has recently passed away. Just incredibly sad how, you're seeing an era of those 1970s definitely starting to go, and it's sad to see. But Dennis, thank you for bringing that up. It's worth bringing up. So
great defensive coordinator.
Absolutely. So sorry I butchered that last name. Pulled a little Lance Williams there. So with that said, the Steelers picked up another XFL guy. Dave, who was that?
Yes. Then not long after that report broke, there was another report that broke that they signed another New York Guardian. This time it was their starting left tackle by the name of, I can't mess up the last name. It's Jones. Is it Jaron Jones or is it Jaron Jones? I think it's Jaron because it's Jarron. Or
I would say Jaron as well.
Yes. So, I'm going to go all Lance Williams on that. Now, what's interesting about him, and it's funny because Jeff texted this morning, and then I saw that this was actually true. This wasn't just like Brian making up stats. Is that although he was their starting left tackle,
I'm probably right.
Yeah, you probably are right. That he was the most penalized lineman. Was it the most penalized lineman or the most penalized player in general in the XFL?
He was the most penalized offensive lineman in the XFL in 2020.
Yeah. So between false starts or holding. Now, but the thing that's interesting with him is he's out of Notre Dame as a defensive lineman. He was a nose tackle in college and then came out of college and he was with the Giants as a defensive lineman, I think it was. But then somewhere along the line in there, I don't know if it was when he got to Seattle, he was with the Giants, he was with the Seahawks, he was with the Cowboys, he was with the Buccaneers, Redskins, Lions, and Bills. All, at one time or another, whether it be practice squad, training camp, one of those things, all those teams. But at some point in there, early on, he transitioned over to offensive line. So it's not that he had a lot of much playing time at the position. So he's one of those people that they say the XFL could really do him good if his only path to the NFL was being an offensive lineman to actually get him some playing time at the position. So this could be another one of those projects. I meant to look it up and I can't remember. I think there's some new rules with player eligibility for the practice squad with the new CBA. But even so, I think he only used 2 years of practice squad eligibility so far in the NFL. So he should have another one if it's something that they think is a project, kind of like an Al Villanueva that was, he was on the defensive line. They brought him in and said, let's make you an offensive tackle and then put him on the practice squad for a year. Don't know that could turn into that, but that's, basically what you're getting there.
Whenever we have a statistic that's, like the one that I mentioned and Dave, you did as well, which is, he's the most penalized offensive lineman in the XFL. I always think of the Bill Murray line from Caddyshack. So we got that going for us, which is nice. On your deathbed, you will receive total consciousness. Brian, what's your tidbit on Mr. Jones? Is it Jones?
Jones.
Jaron Jones or
Jaron, Mr. Jones.
He might
Mr.
be Jaron Jones.
JJ, double J.
Well, if he makes the team, we could go to the Counting Crows.
I knew you were going with that.
But we don't have to go to the. We could do that.
What about Bob Dylan?
Bob Dylan? Which Bob Dylan?
Didn't he have some? There would trust. I can't remember which one it is.
I was thinking of going back to 1973 with me and Mrs. Jones. So me, Jaron Jones, or is it Jaron Jones?
Well, see, in the Counting Crows song, when he says "I want to be Bob Dylan," it's because Mr. Jones was actually someone that's from a song by Bob Dylan. So I thought maybe you're going back to the original. Sorry.
Big fan of that song and group. I've seen them 3 times in concert, actually.
Let's stick with the Counting Crows. Now, it seems like, there's 3 players that the Steelers signed from the XFL, and it seems like for some reason we have live chats in between every one of them that someone passed away, and here's Snowman, $5. This is awful. Rest in peace, Curly Neal, one of the best Harlem Globetrotters in history. May he rest in peace. I didn't hear nor knew anything about him.
I did not know that either.
It's a shame.
He was great. And I grew up right around the time, Jeff, when, of course, they were touring, but they had the cartoon on TV, the Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah.
And Dave, you might remember this. Now, you're too young to remember this, but I remember the fantastic, it was like 1979, 1980, Friday night NBC movie of the week, Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island.
that was before I was old enough to remember. I would have only been a couple years old. But no,
it was a great night at the Davis house.
Wow.
All right, moving on to our third and final XFL addition to the Steelers offseason roster, which, by the way, Dave, is it still 91 for the Steelers, considering, or did that inflate with the new CBA? Do you know?
That is a great question. That is something that I'm going to have to get on about. I've been looking at different parts of the CBA. I've actually printed out part of the CBA just to do stuff. I've really dove into the end of the compensatory stuff and how that changed and everything. So I got to add that to the list of something to check out.
Okay. All right.
Well, because we had the 91 because we had the international exemption. I don't know if we're getting the exemption one more year or not. I know they actually announced it last season.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's, with everything going on in the world, I don't know that that's the most important announcement to hear from the Steelers right now.
Yeah, that's probably true. Probably true. All right. So the third XFL player was a safety from the DC Defenders named Tyree. It's either Kinnell or Kinnell. We're not sure. He was a Michigan product. He had a short stint with the Bengals. Like I said, he's a safety. And if you're looking for some feel-good stats, here's one for you. When he was targeted, he gave up a 128.2 passer rating. So we got that going for us, which is nice.
It makes you feel really good about Jordan Dangerfield, my friends.
It does. It does. It's tough to find some information about these guys. But you look at safety, it's a position of need, and in terms of depth, and people forget all the time. The offseason roster is inflated for a reason. You don't want Minkah Fitzpatrick and Terrell Edmonds to have to play a whole lot early in training camp. You don't want them out there more than they have to be out there. You have to save those commodities, and because of that, you have to make sure that you have players to go on the field when it's their time to take a break. So maybe this guy maybe he'll be one of those players. I'm not sure. Dave, you know anything about this guy?
No, but I do know that within the past hour, it appears that the Steelers signed another XFL player.
Oh my XFL! Someone said in the live chat it was CFL. Like, are we going to the Canadian?
I haven't caught that one. It's a beautiful day here. I was outside working, getting stuff done. I was just rushing to get to I'm about 3 hours behind on my Steelers news right now. But this one, because I was trying to, I want to see about Curly Neal. This one is a former Steeler. Someone who spent time in Steelers camp last year. We have another long snapper. We had the linebacker long snapper. You remember who that was last year, Brian? a player that was.
I should know because we talked
not the
about
tight
him
end, not the tight end one.
wasn't the
That was
tight
Trevor
end?
Wood. There was
that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Christian. I don't know if I'd say Kuntz or Kuntz. Kuntz.
I would say it would be, if it's anything like Rusty Kuntz, I would probably say, let's just go with that.
What about Dick Shiner?
Yeah, come on.
Dick Shiner
was actually a Steeler player, okay? I don't want to get any emails from people saying we've gone perverse. No, Dick Shiner was a former Steeler player. I didn't know if it was him. I don't think so, but it wasn't.
Dick Shiner I think he was on the team in 1969.
Well, yeah, I thought he might still be able to snap the football. I don't know. So, all right.
Oh, he's a quarterback.
So remember,
Brian.
Get to know your Dick Shiners.
Yeah. Just remember, Christian will say Kuntz. When I say he's a linebacker, it's an outside linebacker.
And it was XFL. They made a mistake. Yeah. Someone corrected themselves. So now it's a 4. Here's the thing to kind of wrap this up, because we don't know much about the guy that they just signed or signed today later in the afternoon. Everyone laughed off these AAF signings last year too, because the Steelers were a team that definitely dug into that league. And even though they folded and it was a giant nightmare, they found a player. I mean, I can't believe it. Their week 1 starting safety was from the AAF, Cam Kelly. Now we know he didn't last, and we know he wasn't good, and we don't want to relive that experience. But you know, I always say it again: all these futures contracts, every now and then, there's a Mike Hilton in there. You know, so you have to keep that in mind. I'm not suggesting that any of these players are going to be on the 50. It's not even 53 anymore, is it? The roster got bumped up, didn't it? Well, this is going to drive me nuts. The stupid even and
on how you think about it. When it comes to, technically, you're adding 2 more to the practice squad, but then you can bring 2 up from the practice squad on game day. I got to dive into that and clarify it a little bit better.
Okay. Let me jump in on Mr. Kuntz, if I can. He was a 3-time All-American for the Duquesne Dukes. He spent some time with the New England Patriots, Denver Broncos, and Jacksonville Jaguars. In his career, he's 25 years old. So you never know what you got. If you've got he was a linebacker in college, also if he's a long snapper, you might have a possibility of somebody like Jeff said. You know, Mike Hilton came out and surprised a lot of people. There's some guys from the XFL that will be that were sought after, and one was I know he's already signed with somebody else, but Drayvon Askew Henry has already signed with another team, who was somebody that the Steeler fans were really excited about last year and did really well in the XFL. So you never know what kind of guys are going to come in and how they're going to shine with that extra chance.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, it's interesting to think about it that way, but we'll see. We'll see. And all right, let's get out of the XFL and that league, which had to suspend their season early, cut their season short because of COVID-19, coronavirus, and all that craziness. Yes, Dave.
And just like I sent to you this morning, these players, they're agreeing to these deals, but they're not actually going to be signing contracts until closer to the draft, because as long as they don't sign another contract, they're still getting paid by the XFL. The XFL is paying them. They're honoring the contracts just because they can't have the games. They want to make sure that these players are taken care of. So these guys should continue to earn their paychecks, and then they will. That's why these signings should be made officially much later on. 4 to 5 weeks.
Well, and you can tell also. I mean, you can tell, for crying out loud. I mean, the Derek Watt and Stefan, is it Steven? What was Wisniewski's first name?
Stefan Wisniewski.
Stefan. They just became official. We had like 5 shows talking about these players, and it's because with no travel, the UPMC Sports Brewing facility is shut down. No one's in it. It's tough. They have to get physicals. They have to pass those physicals. And from what I've gathered, NFL teams are having to find trusted doctors, or they're doing Skype. I don't even know how this would even work, but I mean, maybe the Steelers medical team is there as they're doing an examination. I don't know. I don't know how it works, but it's taking longer than usual for these signings to become official, and some of them still haven't become official. So
rumor does have it, Jeff, that Big Ben is, if he's not living under a bridge, he's living in the basement of the UPMC Center right now.
That's
the rumor.
He has the beard. He has the beard for sure. So, boy, Lance is getting everyone all riled up in the live chat right now. I mean, if you're watching live on YouTube, he's in there asking people, is Lamar Jackson better than Ben Roethlisberger?
I don't know. It's like he's trying to do. Yeah, I said it in the live chat.
Hijack it.
He is literally just like poking bears left and right as much as he can. Like, I'm gonna poke how many bears I can poke. All right. So this is the Steelers preview podcast, and normally on the preview aspect of things is when we talk about upcoming games. There are no upcoming games as of right now, and so we're going to talk about position by position. We finished the offense last week when we dove deep into the fullback position. That was fun, and now we're going over to the defensive side. And what better position to start with than Dave? I did say outside linebacker, right?
That's what you told me.
Yes, I did. All right. Now, hopefully this year we only do this once. We did it twice last year when Dave was off on vacation. Brian and I were like,
I was listening to that at Disney World. Oh, man, you're bringing back memories.
All right. So outside linebacker is the position to preview. Let's go over the depth chart first. Dave and Brian will use their craniums to give you that information. Go ahead, Dave. Get us started.
Oh, well, we still have the two starters that are, well, let's just say this. Can't say they're necessarily under contract. They're counting towards the salary cap, which we have, TJ Watt and Alvin Bud Dupree.
Yes. Okay. And what about the depth?
Brian, you want to chime in? I don't want to take all the spotlight.
That's true.
So, have I ever accused you of that?
Just every other show.
Am I that bad? Okay, well, you have Ola Adenyi, and I'm going to ask one of you guys real quick. What is Ola's first name? Can any of you say it?
Ola Sunkanmi.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Good stuff. I love that. Dave.
I can't get freaking Christian. But I can get Ola Sunkanmi Odenye.
That's okay. And
can we get to the man, the most important player?
Tuzar Skipper, baby.
There he is. Old Skip.
Yeah, so Skippy is he's the only other one. And I tell you what, I still like
that's not true.
Well, the only one on the official R-Lads depth
because they will now have Christian Kuntz.
I thought he was signed as a long snapper.
Well, he might be. Who knows? But he's technically also an outside linebacker.
Hey, do not sleep on CK. Don't sleep on Mr. Kuntz.
No, I'm not. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm just giving you a hard time.
So, I'm telling you. I'm loving it.
Skippy. Yeah. That's
Skippy.
That's all.
That's gosh, I mean, that's why when you're cutting Chicolo.
Yeah.
I mean, Chicolo was a major depth.
Chicolo was awful. I feel like I could have gone out there and done what he did on defense. And that's just run up the arc and get pushed over.
You just don't have the great hair. But here's the thing. You needed a depth pieces, and they're going to bring in. I think they're bringing 2 in the draft and a couple undrafted free agents. I mean, they might only keep 4 at that position. I mean, we've seen them keep only 3 at that position.
On the practice squad.
Yeah, but they're going. Yeah, I agree with you completely, Deputy Dave. But how I feel about it is, you're gonna have to have some camp guys in there, and camp guys make a claim because no one's telling a camp guy that they're just there to be a camp guy. You're not there just to fill out the 91 or whatever the roster is right now. You're not just there to fill in a spot. They're thinking if they've got a chance to sit at the table, they're going to eat the meat.
Yeah. I do want to say something about Chicolo, though. Last year, the biggest reason Chicolo was the disappointment is he didn't live up to his best ability. And what's everyone's best ability? Availability. And that was the thing. He missed 5 games last year. So
some of those were off-field transgressions. Am I right?
No, that was after the fact.
He was already out with injury, wasn't it?
Okay.
And that was why it didn't really.
That was over New Year's, I
big
believe.
wheel. No, because they brought him back, but he was already injured was the thing. So it's like, oh, well, we'll just do that because he'd already missed. Because that was the thing when that happened. He was injured. I'm pretty sure. But he also was dealing with the plantar fasciitis, which he was the year before, that he supposedly got fixed with surgery in the offseason, and yet they paid him all that money. And that's why I said that was their worst free agent signing and blah, 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 and all this other thing. But so as someone said in the live chat, I mean, he was your reserve outside linebacker. What did you expect? I'm like, what did I expect? For him to actually be available. And that didn't happen. So that was what part of the reason why he was not worth the contract. So I said this on Stat Geek Tuesday night. We talked about, filling holes and things like that, and how we do feel that the Steelers are really in a very good place to draft best player available, that they don't have to really specifically look at positions. But I'm still not shocked if their first draft pick that they take is an outside linebacker, because you don't know if you're going to get Bud Dupree signed long-term. And like I said, if it's going to be anywhere close to what the salary cap is per year in a long deal, no, thank you. You want to sign him long-term if you're going to get it less per year. So this might be another one and done with Dupree. Wouldn't it be nice to already have somebody there, that's, why can't I remember what Lance always, with the pedigree, with the draft pedigree, as Lance would say, that could be, your backup this year that could step in next year, because we still don't know really what we have with Ola Denier or Tuzar Skipper.
What do you think about that, Brian? You think that outside linebacker should be high on the draft?
It will be.
List?
I think it's going to be high. If it's not number 2, I still think they're going to sniff around a running back, maybe a wide receiver. If a real stud's there, they can get another wide receiver in the 3rd round. But I don't expect Bud Dupree to be here past 2020. I think he's a 1-year rental, but that's what we said last year. That's what I said last year. So you never know what they're going to look at. But if I'm going to say what they're looking at high, I'd probably say outside linebacker, edge rusher, and running back are the first 2 that they're looking at. That offensive lineman's probably going to come in the 3rd or the 4th, and that wide receiver is going to come maybe in the 3rd, possibly in the 2nd. But I think those are the 2 you're looking at, with OLB being very high on that list.
I asked this question because I literally don't know. Maybe someone in the live chat, if you all aren't as well versed as I'm not versed at all. How deep is this edge pass rushing class coming into the NFL draft? Is it good, bad, awful?
Deep. It's deep. It's one of the ones when Colbert talked at the combine, he said, well, obviously wide receiver. He's like, but it seems like that's always deep coming out of college, just because of the way the college game is. But he says this year's draft is the 2 positions that he named was edge rusher and offensive tackle. So not that I could give you specific names, but there are some names there that, from where I've done the mock draft Mondays, that some people are like, if he's there in the 2nd round, of course the Steelers should take him. He just very well might be, because how many teams are going to, is every team going to take an edge rusher in front? If there's double digit quality edge rushers in the top 50, wow.
Well, and here's the situation. This happens every year. Last night we had Chris Carter on. He was talking about how the offensive line, especially at tackle, was just ridiculously deep. And wide receiver class, everyone's saying that this could be the deepest wide receiver class in recent memory. You throw all those players together, and if edge is as deep as everyone, including Kevin Colbert, is saying, there's only 32 picks in the 1st round.
Yeah.
So some of these players are going to either bump back into the 2nd, and you're going to get a 1st-round talent in the 2nd round. There's going to be players available. And so that's why we've talked about this last week. How nice is it going to be that the Steelers can go into it with kind of a best player available approach, compared to in past years where, let's say they don't get Wisniewski, and all of a sudden they're thinking, well, we're going to have to get a lineman. We have to get a lineman. Yeah. We got to take the best lineman available in that 2nd round. Go ahead, Brian. What were you going to say?
Here's the best thing about this year's draft. Last year, all we were talking about was inside linebacker. It was stairway to Devin. There were 2 Devins. You figured the one Devin was going to go higher. You thought that you were going to have to trade up, and you eventually had to trade up for the other Devin. Then there was a huge drop. Mac Wilson didn't go until the 5th round. There was a huge drop in inside linebackers. And I know I'm sure a few went in between there, but it was at the position that they definitely needed. It was dry. The year before, when they took Terrell Edmonds, and there was 4 that they loved, 4 inside linebackers that everybody loved. There was a huge drop off with the positions that they need, being offensive line, wide receiver, not so much running back, but outside linebacker. It's pretty deep. The draft is pretty deep for those guys. So the Steelers could look pretty good at that number 49 spot and get somebody decent. You're going to get a player that you can covet. I know a lot of situations you've seen a lot of guys pick number 2 that have done very well. And I would probably say, if you looked at the last 30 years, I haven't done it, but if you look at the last 30 years and recently, I bet you their success rate at number 2 is a lot higher than their bust rate.
I did that article.
I have some numbers on that when we get to the next part.
Great.
Okay. No, I did that article under the Tomlin era.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there were only 4 players. Well, they didn't have a pick in, I think, 2 of those years in the 2nd round. And I want to say there were only 4 of those players didn't receive a second contract with the Steelers. One of them being Sean Davis, who, because of Minkah Fitzpatrick, became expendable and is playing for the Washington Redskins now. So definitely agree with you there. 100%. There's still going to be talent there. Before I forget, because it's on the top of my mind, are you 2 and Tony planning on doing a mock draft again, since we found out that the NFL draft's going to go off as planned?
You know what? I think that's a great idea.
49? Ouch. That's hard.
Yes, I want that.
You know what?
Brad,
send me yours. I'll just do yours.
That's not fair. That's
you know what?
cheating.
We can have some fun with that. We'll probably do at least the 1st round. And what we'll do is then we'll mock the Steeler pick. Unless you really want us to
do that. No,
49.
you can do that. You could do that. Although it's gonna be tough to mock the pick without getting to the pick. You know what I mean? It's gonna be you could just rattle the names off. So if you all went and did a mock draft, you do the whole 1st round, and then someone just rattles off. Okay, the next picks are boom, 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 boom. We have the Steelers taking this player at 49.
Yeah, that's the way we would do it. That. In fact, I am going to invite Lance. I'm going to invite Jeff.
Jeff's not going to do it.
Jeff can do it.
I'm busy. I'm busy that night.
You're washing your cat.
Yep.
So,
it needs a wash.
But because what we'll probably do is we'll break it up into somebody goes number 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll probably do it that way this year. But we can have some fun with it, and we published it last year too, I believe.
That would be a podcast. That would be a show, and we could turn it
into an article on Blog Talk. I remember where I was sitting on the phone having to do
I'll tell you what, the live chat would be really good to get involved too, and have them give their feedback. And
so here's an idea. And I know this isn't supposed to be.
This is like a production meeting. On the air.
Are we even going to talk about outside linebacker anymore?
This is what we're going to do. And they used to do this. I remember Stan and Guy used to do this years ago. They would have right before the draft on their show on whatever it was. I mean, Fox Sports Pittsburgh or so many different names for that network that they had. But what they would do was they would have somebody in the live chat, they would pick 1 through 32, and each one would go ahead and pick one for the team, and then that player was gone. So we would have to mess around with it and have a lot of fun, but we could pick the draft order the week before.
Yeah,
we can
we'll talk about that off the air.
I'm excited.
Is there any other outside linebacker talk? I mean, we know it's important. I don't think they're going to bring anyone in from free agent pool.
Guys, I mean, what do you think about the depth? I mean,
it's awful.
Are you no? But I'm just saying, do you feel okay going into the season with Ola Denier and Tuzar Skipper as the guys that are filling in, just in times when they have to give them a breather, or in case of injury for either Bud Dupree or TJ Watt? Are we all right with that? I mean,
so who did they have last year?
they had
Chicolo
and a Denier. And
And
Tuzar
then-
Skipper, they brought in later. He never
Right.
dressed for a game.
No, he didn't. But I mean, we were saying the same thing like a year ago.
Yeah.
And we all said the same thing. No, we're not comfortable. And they didn't do
The year
anything
before,
about
they
it.
only kept 3. Remember? They only kept 3.
Yeah.
I am more comfortable this year than I am last year. As far as everything goes, I mean, if you take the 4 last year and we're not talking Skipper, we're talking Chicolo and Adeniyi as 3 and 4. I'm more comfortable with Adeniyi and Skipper as 3 and 4. Now, my question to both of you, and I'll ask you first, Jeff, is this going to be the final 4, or is it going to be 3? What's your projection if you're looking at the regular season? Dave, I'll ask you that as well.
Well, I'm trying to think last year when they didn't keep 4 outside linebackers, where did they put that extra body? Was it defensive back, Dave?
Well, remember, they kept 5 to start because they kept Skipper. And then the day before the game, they cut him.
That's right. They cut him.
And then added another wide receiver because they tried to skimp along with only 5 wide receivers. So bottom line is, in the way I look at it, or does Jeff want to answer first?
I think they go with 4. I think they roll with 4. I think they have 4 if they have 4 that they like in any way, shape, or form, whether it's a draft pick or whether it's a player that, like if Ola Denier steps up or Tuzar Skipper shows out, I think they go with 4. That's just my personal thought.
I think they go with 9 linebackers. They go with 9 linebackers, meaning they're either going to go 4 outside, 5 inside, or 5 outside, 4 inside. That's kind of, other than the one crazy year where they only kept 3 for a while, that's kind of been their formula where they do 9 linebackers, 6 defensive linemen, and 10 defensive backs to do 25 defensive players. So the question is going to be, and it all comes down to special teams, are they going to keep an extra inside or outside linebacker? So I think it comes, so you have to also group that position into it as well.
Well, if you look at what they had to do last year, they always had it seemed like the last couple of years, they had to always keep an extra inside linebacker because of Tyler Matakevich being your special teams captain and your ace. Now that they have, I believe Derek Watt was signed to be a special teams ace as well as a fullback. So that might be a possibility that they don't have to keep as many inside linebackers around because of Matakevich being gone. But the question to you guys is, will the final 4 be, of course, TJ and Bud? We have them in there, but will both Adeniyi and Skipper, the Toledo boys, will the Toledo boys be on the final 53?
No. I think one of them will.
Dave?
I think it's a possibility. I give it a 50-50 shot of it being both. I give it 100% that it's one of them.
No one toes the line like Dave Schofield. 50-50 shot.
No, you really want to know the truth?
Yes,
Ask me
I do.
after the draft, because how high they draft an outside linebacker is what's going to depend on.
No, you're right.
If they take an outside linebacker in the 2nd or 3rd round, guess what? That guy's making the team. Unless it's total El Busto. Even in the 4th round, most likely. 5th round is when you start to get to where guys may or may not make the team. So if they address that position, the only way both those guys make the team is if they keep 5.
And I tell you what, there's talent at inside linebacker. I know we're going to be talking about that next week. Donald just mentioned on the live chat, don't forget about Robert Spillane, who's another inside linebacker that could be there, and we'll talk more about that next week. But it's going to be interesting because Dave brought up the 5 and 4, 4 and 5. Where's it going to go? Depends who they bring in and who they still like, because there's a lot of guys they like it inside.
What I would like is, I would be fine with this. George Rice says, I'll put it on the screen. He said, bring in an extra outside guy and have a hybrid safety / inside linebacker, kind of like a Mark Barron type. We talked about that on our show last night that they're going to need to fill that role in some way, shape, or form. So
But wasn't Sutton Smith supposed to be both an inside and outside linebacker, and he was going to be the answer?
Honestly, if I ever said that,
tell
me, show me the episode. Because I don't think I ever said that. I don't think anyone on this. Brian would have been the one.
I'm just saying that's what a lot of chatter.
Yeah.
And you like to make fun of that chatter.
Yes, I love that. Speaking of which, before we move off of the outside linebackers and go to our trivia portion of the show, out of the players that we've talked about today, I've talked about especially the XFL guys. Is there anyone in that XFL group that's going to be the camp darling that, oh my gosh, I think Brian said it in a text message that someone's going to be so angry that they get cut?
Well, because I'm not ripping on our show and our format and our blog site, but we get to the point with we're writing a lot of articles and we're looking for subjects all the time. We're going to be talking about Kayvon Walker a lot because because here's the thing. Dave did it. You did it. I did it. We knew so much last year about Tuzar Skipper and Devlin Hodges because they came in right in May and they were the two guys that tried out and they became camp darlings. And we knew about them before a lot of other people. We were talking about them all the time because we wanted something to talk about.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be talking about Kayvon Walker.
Yeah, probably. Dave, do you agree or do you not think anyone even?
Yeah, well, it's funny because sometimes we look at a guy, oh yeah, this is great that they signed this guy, they brought him in, everything else that and then what happens? They'd have the draft, they have rookie minicamp, hopefully, we'll see. And then those guys, I mean, how many AAF guys did we sign last year? There was at least one, if not two, that people thought was impressive that never made it to training camp. Never made it to training camp because they decided to sign someone else from rookie minicamp. So,
all right, let's get to this super chat here before we move on. Michael Clark says, it's $1.99 in the tip jar. We appreciate that. He says, why draft a running back when Snell could thrive with Ben? If you're asking me that question, say that again, Dave.
A lot of people were talking about running back in the live chat. That's why it's coming up.
Yeah. Well, I think that it comes down to with running back, and we talked about this when we previewed that position, was I don't think anyone's sold on any of those guys being the guy. You know, James Conner has his injury history. He has fumbled the ball in crucial times. Benny Snell is still very much unproven. Jalen Samuels was very unimpressive last year. Kareth White is an unknown commodity at this point in time as a running back. That's it. You know, I mean, so could Benny Snell thrive with Ben Roethlisberger? Maybe. He'll have a chance to show that next year. I don't think there's any way he gets cut, as a second-year player. But at the same time, that's just my personal answer. Brian, what do you think?
One of the reasons we're talking so much about running backs this year, it's not just because of the injury history of James Conner. It's because of two players that don't even play at that position. And that's TJ Watt, drafted number 1 that year. And it's also Juju Smith-Schuster, drafted number 2 that year. In the 3rd round, they got Cam Sutton, and they got James Conner. So contracts are going to be coming up. You're not going to be keeping, though. Let's take Cam Sutton out of the mix. You're not going to be able to keep all 3 of those guys at extended contracts. And because of that, what's going to happen is you're going to have to make a choice. And probably the odd man out of that threesome is probably going to be James Conner. And I was thinking that last year as well. And we've talked about that before. So it depends who you want to keep in that. So just like you're talking about getting an outside linebacker because Bud Dupree might not be here next year, you might have to think about the fact that James Conner's not going to be here next year, and he's not getting cut. But for the reason that there might not be enough room to sign him, just like everybody knew Javon Hargrave was gone. Not because they wanted him gone, they wanted to keep him, but we were okay with it because we just knew that you had to say goodbye to somebody, and the guy that they said goodbye to was not the biggest need at the time.
Dave, thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of addressed this a little bit on Stat Geek, and then had to answer an interesting comment on the video at one point. That was today about someone that was saying the running game was trash. There was no threat of any running game last year. I'm like, really? If there was no threat of a running game, how come defenses were stacking the box? They didn't care. They were saying, you're not going to run on us because if you do, you might beat us. Because it wasn't that there was no threat of a running game. It's that there was no threat of a passing game, especially a deep passing game. And they said, you know what? If the Steelers are going to beat us, we're going to make them throw deep with this. You don't have, were they seeing 2 deep safeties? No, they were seeing them up close to the line. So everyone's saying, oh, well, the running game was so bad. It wasn't necessarily just because of the running backs. And that's why everyone thinks we have to go running back. We have to upgrade that. There is so much more to the running game than the running back. There really is. And I've said this for a long time. And I am not, honestly, that would probably be the most disappointing position for the Steelers to draft first in the NFL draft this year for me. If their first pick that they get in the second round is a running back, I'm just telling you, that's going to be, because to me, it's just going to be caught up in the room. Is there really anyone that's going to emerge this year that's going to do that? Then you're talking about guys that we would like to know what they are, that are just going to be bumped out and not even on the squad. So if there's a great running back there at 49, I understand if they take him, but I'm just not going to be excited about a second round running back with no first round pick this year. That's just me.
To Dave's point, and I feel like I'm kumbayaing with Dave like crazy today, but I completely agree with him. But one of the things that you've got to think about is, let's go back about 20 some years. Can you imagine the numbers that Jerome Bettis would have had if the Steelers had a decent passer in the late 1990s, other than Cordell Stewart, because they were stacking the box like crazy against Jerome Bettis. Jerome Bettis was still put up the numbers. They had a good running game, but they were stacking like crazy. He could have done so much more, and he could have. I mean, his numbers could have been through the roof. But they didn't trust the passing game this year. I mean, they didn't worry about the passing game. Opposing defenses didn't, and that's what happened last year. No one really, as soon as Mason Rudolph got concussed and came back wobbly and just wasn't the same guy, they didn't respect it as much, but they started loading it up right away as soon as Ben was gone, to see what they can to see if they could confuse this kid. And he got worse after he was concussed, but there was no reason to not stack the box.
It's true. All right, Dave, before we get to trivia, I want you to take a minute and explain the watch party that we were talking about, that you read an article quickly. So go ahead and break that down, what the thought was and the thought process and what we're expecting people to do.
Well, Jeff was just asking what I was working on article wise, and I said something, and he kind of threw this idea out there based on what I said. A lot of us are stuck at home. A lot of us are looking, we don't have live sports to watch. Obviously, you don't have live NFL to watch right now anyway, but you don't have any live sports to watch. So a lot of people are watching replays. And to me, I don't want to watch a replay of a hockey game because that just makes me sad that hockey's not going on. Of course, I'm going to watch replays of Steeler games. Anyone realize that Super Bowl 40 was on NFL Network last night? It was on at 10 p.m. Yeah, I recorded it so I can watch it hopefully tonight. But what we're doing is we're saying, hey, NFL Game Pass, you can get it for free through the end of May right now. So that's every NFL game all the way back to 2009. So on the website, it's the most recent article on the website, I think, unless Jeff updated anything else, is that we're going to do a watch party. The first article is going to come out Sunday. There's polls in this article that's out now in order to determine what it's going to be Sunday, that we're going to say, all right, we're going to say, this is the game we're going to watch. I'm going to give you all a few days. That's part of the polls in the article to see how long we're going to give for each one. And we're going to watch the game, and I'm going to bring up some discussion points. I can tell you what some of them are right now, because this is what I was telling Jeff. When I look at these old Steeler games, if it's a game they lost, I think of what's the main – at what point, what play changed to take the Steelers out of the game? or if they won the game, what game went their way early on, or what play went their way early on, that if that wouldn't have happened, it could have been a whole different outcome. Various different things to look at and discussion points. So we're going to do it. It's watch party. You watch it when you want to, but then when we run the article, it's a great place to then discuss stuff in the comments. Another way to think of it, it's a book club, but rather than having to read some boring book, you're getting to watch a Steelers game. And that's what you're going to be talking about.
I think that you would also be smart to say like a day and time when if people want to watch it at the same time, they can.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you're like, hey, everyone's going to watch a game on Thursday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Everyone log on, and at 7 o'clock, start the game. And then if people want to actually comment during the game, they could do that too. That's technically what a watch
we'll
party
have to
is.
figure that out. So, so we'd basically be doing like a live thread during that time?
You could do it the way that you want to do it as well. I mean, they can use that comment section to do whatever, but at the same time, if people want to watch it at that same time, you set up the date, you set up the time, and then you say, okay, if you want to watch it in together, so let's say the three of us were all watching Thursday night, 7 p.m., everyone's watching Bills at Steelers in week 15 of last year, whatever week it wasn't 15. On Sunday Night Football, we would tune in at 7 o'clock. We'd all get our computers. We'd all watch it, and then we'd be able to comment on it in the live chat. So that's the comment section. So there you go. All the information is on behindthesteelcurtain.com. So I think it's a cool idea. We should do it. So, all right, Dave, trivia, you have something?
Oh, I got some. I was looking at, it's funny, I was like, do I want to look outside linebacker? Do I want to look at draft stuff? Since, like I said, we are exactly 4 weeks away. 4 weeks from now, we will be checking out what other teams are doing in the first round of the NFL draft. So I kind of did something that combined a little bit of an event. You'll see. But it was also inspired by Jeff's article about, hey, what about those second round picks? I decided I was going to look at the Steelers' first and second round picks all the way back to the merger, all the way back to 1970 when the Steelers took Terry Bradshaw. So it was really interesting that they have, in that time, the Steelers have made 51 first-round picks and 49 second-round picks for exactly 100 picks in the first two rounds since 1970. Now, we know sometimes we get some of those busts. We get a few of those second-round busts. Like, and I started like, well, how do you define bust? How about a guy that never starts a game? Never gets credited for a start in the NFL. Like we would know the most recent one would be Senquez Golson.
Brian's boy.
Okay.
I've got on Senquez Golson.
Yeah, but and before that,
got a chance to be a bust.
I'm not saying he was a bad pick, but he was a bust. There's a difference between being a bad pick or a bust. You also have Limas Swede, who did not start any games in the NFL. But all these guys are second-round picks. Do you know who the Steelers' most recent first-round pick to not ever start an NFL game?
I didn't hear the rest. The most recent first-round pick
to never. The most recent first-round pick to never start an NFL game.
With the Steelers?
With the Steelers.
To not start an NFL game with the Steelers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and honestly, to not start an NFL game for anybody.
Oh, okay.
So, but picked by the Steelers.
Isn't it who's the guy that was in the car accident?
That's a fantastic guess. That's Gabe Rivera. That was 1983. No,
so
he has no career starts. He played in 6 games, but no starts. But there's actually been one since him. And there was a reason that I asked this question tonight, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to go draft or if I wanted to go based on position. So that's your hint. It was actually an outside linebacker.
Jarvis Jones?
No, Jarvis Jones started games.
He started.
I got it. Yeah.
Brian, you got it?
Let's go back in 1991 and one Huey Richardson.
That would be correct. One Brian Anthony Davis.
Very nice.
There you go.
Very
he
nice.
Played in 16 total games, only 5 of which were for Pittsburgh in one season. He was the 15th overall pick
Out of
in
Florida,
1991, and he did not register a statistic in the NFL in his career. Not a tackle or anything. See, at least Rivera, he had 2 sacks in his 6 games. So at least he had statistics.
So let me ask you a question about that. What about Jermaine Stevens? Did Jermaine Stevens start a game?
Yes. Well, here's what's crazy. Those are the only 2 first-round draft picks going back to 1970 that did not start at least 15 games. Or no, sorry, at least double-digit games. Sorry. There was one other person that only started 10 games. That was a first-round pick. So that was kind of crazy. And that was actually from 1985. That would be Darrell Sims. He only started 10. So if you want to know how many games was started by, what year was he drafted? Jermaine Stevens?
Jermaine Stevens was 96. Darrell Sims was 85.
Yeah, Jermaine Stevens, he started 15 games. So, but what's crazy is the Steelers, out of their 49 second round draft picks since 1970, 17 of them did not start double digit games in their career. 17 out of 49.
Pretty good.
Wow.
Yep.
All right, Brian, do you have something or
I
no?
do.
All right, we'll go for it.
So Dave was looking at outside linebacker. I was looking at the other theme of the night, which was the XFL and players coming in from the XFL. So we all know of one of the most famous XFL players to play for the Steelers. And he's a part of the question, but there's somebody else too. So what I'm looking at is who won the only XFL championship and what 2 players with ties to the Steelers were on that XFL championship.
I have no idea. I don't know.
That was that was 2001.
2001.
2001.
I don't even remember the team names from back then.
Yeah, I don't. That's the problem. I don't remember the team names. That was almost 20 years ago.
I don't even know the team names now, other than the players they just signed.
Now. So, but yeah, back then I would assume Tommy Maddox was one of them. Did
Tommy Maddox was the MVP?
Yeah, I know he's MVP. Did they win it?
They won it. The Los Angeles Extreme with an X. Extreme.
I remember.
He hate me. Was he on that team? He
played not on that team. Vegas, I think.
I thought he played for like a Southeast team. I don't know why.
I'm not sure. But the other player, I don't even know if you remember this, but I actually remember his number because it just came to me. Linebacker Rico Mack. Does anybody remember Rico Mack?
No.
All right, we're gonna
say that I do.
Okay, he was a Pittsburgh Steeler as well. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up, I'm going to go back. We're going to have a little more fun with this, and we're going to go back a few more years. We're going to go to the first USFL championship, and the first USFL champion was the Michigan Panthers. How many Steelers won the championship with the Michigan Panthers the inaugural season in 1983? Is it?
That was a good year.
I'm going to go 3.
3? That's a good one. Jeff, you going to go higher or lower?
2.
Well, you didn't hear my inflection when I said higher. It was 4.
I almost went with 4.
And there's some some names that you would know. The 2 you probably wouldn't would be Tom Dornbrook and Tyrone McGriff.
Come on, man. Those are household names.
But the other 2, Ray Penny and a member of the Steel Curtain, not the original Steel Curtain, but a very famous Steeler, John Banaszak.
Very good. There you go. There's your USFL and XFL trivia for the day.
XFL trivia now, no USFL trivia. But the Steelers
Okay, my trivia tonight is based off of Steelers coaches, 2 Steelers coaches that had careers in the National Football League. That would be to Mr. Bill Cowher and one Mr. Dick LeBeau. So we're going to start with easy questions and kind of go towards the more difficult side of things. But that's going to be based off of their playing careers, not their coaching careers. Okay? Mm-hmm. So let's start with Dick LeBeau. Where did Dick LeBeau go to college? This is an easy one.
Ohio State University?
That is correct. Now, Dave, I'm assuming you knew that. Dave, I'll give you the first crack at where did Bill Cowher go to college. He met his wife there who played basketball at the same university.
I didn't even know the Dick LeBeau one because I don't do college. I don't watch or follow college football.
These are legendary Steelers coaches. I mean, okay,
Yeah.
Brian
Steelers.
for the Steel.
North Carolina State University.
That is right. NC State. And that's part of the reason why
I was
some
going to
people
say
said
North
that
Carolina, so I would have got it wrong.
It's part of the reason
I
why rumor was Bill Cowher liked Phillip Rivers so much was because where did he play? NC State.
NC State.
All right. So
That makes sense now.
what year was Dick LeBeau drafted into the NFL?
What's he like? 107 now?
He's older than you think. He looks great. He looks great.
I think he's like 85, isn't he?
He's in his 80s. Yeah. Looks great for his age, by the way.
Okay, so
He might not be in his 80s. He might be like late 70s.
nah, he's in
No,
his 80s.
I think he's in his 80s.
No, he's
Wow,
definitely
okay.
in his 80s.
All right. We got some guesses coming in. Ezra says 1900. That is not correct.
So if
Let's take a stab in the dark.
yeah, so
1956.
That's-
I don't know.
Not too
Pretty
bad.
good.
That's not it.
so if he's 80, if I'm guessing that he's 85 years old and that he is I can't do the math.
Let's
to
take a
give a-
guess.
Let's go 1958.
Close, 1959. And he was drafted in the 5th round by what team?
The Detroit
Was he Detroit Lions? That's who he played for, but that's not who he got drafted by.
Cincinnati Bengals.
Close. The
Cleveland
Cleveland Browns drafted him.
So-
he didn't even play a game for them.
So both
He
of
was
them are tied
drafted
to
in the
Browns.
5th. He was drafted in the 5th round by the Cleveland Browns, and then found his way to Detroit. Played his whole career for the Detroit Lions. Turned it into a Hall of Fame career. Now, what year was Bill Cowher drafted?
Did he? I thought he went undrafted.
He was undrafted, but what draft?
So I'm going to say 1980, if not 79. 80.
Very close. Very close. Dave?
I was going to say, believe it or not, I was torn between 81 and 82, so I was going to say 81.
It's actually 79. He
79.
went undrafted in 79 and got picked up by what team?
The Philadelphia Eagles.
That is correct. The Philadelphia Eagles. And then from there, he went to Cleveland. And played majority of his career in Cleveland, but that's where he got his coaching start as well. So,
What other Steeler head coach had played for the Cleveland Browns?
head coach Chuck Noll.
Yep, there you go.
He was Paul Brown, one of Paul Brown's disciples, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was the messenger guard.
Yes, the messenger. All right, so we've eclipsed the 1 hour mark, so that means we were way too long. Make sure you join us for the after party, which is coming up right after this. If you're watching live on YouTube, give us about 5 minutes. You'll see the notification come through. If you're listening on audio platforms, I understand it will be coming out and published at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday. So if you're listening to us and saying, what is this after party thing? Check us out at 1 p.m. It'll be there. Thanks for listening. We'll see you in a few minutes.